Cecil, man, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Day's still punching, but I'm here, man. It's been a long season, and I've often said, Matt, you know me well, like the regular season is a grind, the draft season is where it's at. So we're almost there, brother. My favorite time of year where I get to hit the road and scout some players and talk to scouts and all that. So like regular season grind this year for the Broncos suck, but draft season's right around the corner. So things are looking up this holiday season.
Listen, draft season's the best because you get your optimism back, right? Now, your team can suck all year, but it's like, all right, there's time to rebuild. You have to watch these new young players. You have to kind of speculate in free agency. However, we didn't really think the Broncos would be speculating this early into December. Honestly, they were kind of speculating come October. A very odd season in Denver. The AFC West was talked about as a possible massive – every team's making the playoffs. It's going to be just, a bloodfest. Guys trying to get in. Also, the Chiefs are good. The Chargers are still the Chargers. The Raiders are a joke. My first podcast episode was about the Raiders and how much they suck. But two episodes later, was about the Broncos. And you and I were sitting together in Vegas when Hackett was just hired, and they were talking about who's going to be the next quarterback of the Broncos.
Right.
We thought maybe Aaron Rodgers. That would have been beautiful. But they get Russell Wilson instead. And what should have been a pretty good season ends up as maybe one of the most disappointing season in franchise history.
Yeah, one of the worst seasons ever. And we have to go back to the 60s. Before my time, Matt. I am old, but it's way before my time. Like, they haven't been this bad in, 60 years, whatever the number is. Like, in the 80s, even if they were kind of bad, and they weren't really with John Elway, but like from 83 on, they've always been around the playoffs in the conversation. One of those, and under Pat Bowlen's guidance, when Mr. Bowlen was here, like his team went to more Super Bowls than they had losing seasons. And now it's been 7 years in a row. Now it's double-digit losses. Like, this is just weird for Broncos country, and it's worse than before. So when you and I were sitting together in Vegas, Nathaniel Hackett is hired. It's okay. It's going to be Aaron Rodgers, because a year before that, Aaron Rodgers and Mark Schlereth were texting during the draft. And Mark Schlereth's like, we're getting Aaron Rodgers, because Aaron Rodgers was telling him that. And then the Packers backed out. And I know controversy and people like, no, they didn't back out. It was never going to happen. Like, whatever. All I know is my guy, who's one of the best NFL, analysts out there, and Mark Schlereth, was on the phone with Aaron Rodgers, and Rodgers was saying that. So guess what? It should have been Hackett and Rodgers. It's not. It's Hackett and Wilson. And you know this, Matt, and I've said it a million times. Give me a quarter every time you say it. But in the NFL, the dirtiest secret is it's all about fit. And if you don't have the right fit, I don't care who you have at quarterback or head coach. It has to be both. They have to fit together. Was it Belichick or Brady? It was both. Was it more one than the other? Okay, whatever. Let's talk about that. But at the end, it's both. So Hackett, nicest guy ever. I call him Happy Fun Baby Star. And listen, the players love him. The players absolutely love him because they don't do anything with him, right? He didn't have 7-on-7s. He didn't have one-on-one drills. They had a bunch of jog throughs in training camp. They don't ever put pads on. Like, he doesn't make them do anything. So of course the players love him. And he's a super nice guy. But I don't care. I'd rather have him be in Aloha if this team had 10 wins instead of 10 losses. So the fit with Russell Wilson, who's going to be here, he is paid now. The fit with Russell Wilson is bad, and that's why things are bad with the Broncos, because those two just don't mesh. So is it Hackett's fault? Is it Wilson's fault? It's both of their fault, but I'd put most of the blame on Hackett instead of Wilson.
No, I think you kind of have to, right? Because going into the season, Russell Wilson, yes, was aging. I don't think anyone will tell you that he wasn't aging. I remember watching his film going into the season, being like, all right, he's got a window. Like, it's only a few years left. You could see the athletic ability that he once had starting to wane. But it looks like we're not seeing the same explosive plays out of Russell Wilson, right? We can talk about the fit, and we will right after this, but the plays outside of structure, the scrambling, the buying the time, the plays with your feet that Russell used to be able to do, I'm not seeing that extra step that he had in Seattle. Are you seeing the same thing when you're watching Broncos games?
Well, it's a mental thing and it's a physical thing. Physically, he's not the same. That's easy to say. 10 years in, he's not going to be the same. It's, hey, attention, all scramblers. You can't keep scrambling. You have to eventually win from the pocket. But when your game has always been that, and those extending the plays and those making something happen when the chips are down, that's Wilson's game. But when you take away that smallest bit of athleticism, and the athletic line in this league is so sharp because these guys are, bigger, faster, stronger, right? That's what the NFL is all about. With Russell Wilson, just like a half a step slower than he used to be, he's not the same guy. And you also had the mental thing of Russ comes into Denver and he's like, I want to play 10 more years. You're not going to play 10 more years, dude. Okay. Like you're going to play like 5, maybe, and maybe 3 of them are here and then they'll move on after that. That's for the future. But like either way, like he's not going to be this 10-year win from the pocket type of guy. That's not who he is. And again, Hackett doesn't set up the job for him to be that. He's not Sean Payton working with Drew Brees, moving the pocket, doing these things to open up these passing lanes. So Wilson himself, like a large part of this is the realization of, this is who he is now. And I think that's been tough for him because who he wanted to be was Mr. Win from the pocket guy. And he can't win from the pocket. He has to use his legs, but his legs aren't the same as they used to be. So he's not the same. So things are kind of a train wreck, and it doesn't help when you have Nathaniel Hackett, who from day one made the absolute mistake of just genuflecting to whatever Wilson wanted to do. There's a lot of controversy. There's a lot of stuff. I'll explain some stuff from behind the scenes in this episode. But yeah, it's Wilson needing to realize, dude, you're not what you think you used to be, and you can't be what you want to be in the future. Not right now. Not the way these things are set up right now in Denver. Offensive line stinks, all those injuries. Like you can't be win from the pocket guy. You still got to use your legs, but your legs aren't what they used to be.
All right. Well, it seems like Russell Wilson hasn't had a real conversation with himself and forever. The way that he presents himself, the way he talks, the way he just goes about business, it seems like he's always trying to be somebody else. Like he's almost doing like an acting job of a quarterback he wants to be.
Yeah, they don't need Tony Robbins, okay? Like it's where's Gary V at? Like get someone in there. Maybe Gary V'd have more motivation, more cuss words as well. But like and Wilson, like, I've been through tough times. And listen, as someone who's lost a parent, and Russell Wilson talking about losing his father years ago, like I get it, man, right? It definitely molds you. It definitely impacts you, and it definitely hurts every day. But like that's tough times off of the field. That's not tough times on the field. Russell Wilson, you've never been through this. You have never been through this. You've been through losing your father. And what a great influence he was. What a great man he was for you to put you into this spot. But on the field, he's never been through this, and he's not relatable whatsoever. I talked to a ton of players. They all want to like him, Matt. But that's the difference. Like, they want to like him. Like, he will come to the lunch table, and it's like high school. And I've often said life is just tall grade school. But, like, guys will be chopping it up, and it's an NFL locker room. So, it's probably not the most PC place, so spoiler alert, in the world. But Russ will come, like, sit down at the lunch table, and guys will be chopping it up about whatever they're talking about. And he won't say a damn thing. And he'll just sit there and, like, eat his apple or whatever. And then when he chimes in, it's stuff like, my second butler needed the day off, and and no one can relate to that when it's some practice squad receiver who's, talking about what is he going to do on vacation or hoping he can make the team next year or whatever. And then Russ sits down and be like, my private jet's landing gear was broken. And nobody can understand you, dude. Mm-hmm. So like, be a real, and this is the problem in Seattle. This is why 2 years ago when I was on the Denver airwaves and I'm like, hey, I'm just telling you, Russell Wilson would be available. And I had a lot of people fight against me. There were even Seattle reporters, damn great reporters in Seattle, that were like, this is from Mark Rodgers, his agent. This is awful. This is never going to happen. And I said, listen, I never talked to Mark Rodgers in my life. I don't need to talk to Mark Rodgers. Generally, I ignore what agents say. This was coming from the team. I knew this 2 years ago that they needed a divorce. They needed to split. Why? Because guys thought Russ was fake. I don't think Denver players think Russ is fake, but he's definitely not acting real. And he's definitely not being as relatable as he needs to be. And what's funny is there's almost this anti-Russ sentiment from some in the building that they better not let that out, because then they'll be gone, because Russ is going to be here. And also the contract, he had 2 years left on his deal. George Payton, and this is what was initially reported, and now it's been spun the other way. Like, no, Russ, there was like a kind of a wink, wink, nod, nod, like, we're going to get traded and you're going to give me a new deal, right? That was never the case. There was zero pressure from Wilson's side to get this job done. So in the new Broncos ownership, see all these layers, dude? It's like Game of Thrones here in Denver, minus the dragons and less nudity. But anyway, like, it's, you look at it now and you go, okay, wait a second. They didn't have the owners yet. They made the trade. They just hired Hackett. They're supposed to get Rodgers. Green Bay backs out. Then they get Hackett. Then they still can't get Rodgers, because it was going to be Rodgers for the last 2 years. It's supposed to be Rodgers. So now you get Wilson. And then because you got Wilson, then your GM waits for the new owners. He convinces the new owners, the Walton Penner Group, to say, let's pay Russell Wilson. They go ahead and do that, even though Russ's camp was not pushing for that. And remember, you will hear differently.
And that's a big deal.
There will be people that say Cecil is wrong and this is blah, blah, blah. There was no pressure from Mark Rodgers and Russell Wilson to get a deal done. The Broncos and George Payton did that himself, and he convinced the ownership to do that. And I would just guess, Matt, I'd have to tell you about Lassie Bark sometime. I probably have told you about them before, but sometimes in this business, you can't say what you know, but you can say enough and people can figure it out. It's like, what's that, Timmy? Or what's that, Lassie? Timmy's trapped in the well. Like, I can give you some Lassie barks. Okay. And the Lassie bark that I would give you is like, if I'm ownership, I'm not real happy with George Payton. Now Payton's going to keep his job. Payton's not getting fired. Hackett's going to get fired. He will be the fall guy. Now there's Seattle people that are telling me like Russ will make sure there are others as well. It's not going to be Payton. So Payton's going to keep his job, but they got to fix this stuff, because the new ownership group who do care, Walton Penner Group, fantastic group, all the money in the world, whatever, 70 billion, whatever. Like, these guys, this is not a hobby. This is not a side thing. This is not a like, oh, we'll figure it out one day, or just part of their portfolio for Walmart. This is a group that really cares about winning football. These fans care about winning football, and they're not getting it. So changes will be made, and they'll be made quite soon.
I want to touch upon real quick what you said about Russ not being relatable, right? Because I think, and what you said about Russ never being through this, right? I feel like for the last 3 to 4 years, Russell Wilson's had a lot of positive media representation, right? You have the analytics guys talk about Russ Cook. You have hosts talk about how good Russ is. It seemed like once he started to struggle, a lot of truth started to come out, right? You've seen a lot of former Seattle players, especially guys like Richard Sherman and Marshawn Lynch, just openly ripping him, right? And Richard Sherman, who actually has a pretty good podcast, by the way, which I've been really impressed to see his growth as a player turned broadcaster, but he's got a big platform.
Yes.
Marshawn Lynch is like a media darling. When they're coming out and just ripping this dude for being just a phony, right? And then once they do that, the media starts turning on him. They're letting Russ cook, right? And he's essentially making like burnt eggs. Like it's a bad look right now for Russell Wilson. Obviously, Hackett's going to be the fall guy. I agree. Like we kind of knew by the middle of the season that Hackett was be the fall guy. That's huge news on Payton, though, that he was pushing for this and it wasn't coming from Russell's camp, because listen, they essentially tied their boat to they had to tie their boat to like a dead motor, right? Like it's like this thing is going nowhere.
Right.
So that's a massive problem. But like, can Russell Wilson, in your mind, like rebound from this? Like, because this is not just like a small deal. Like this is pretty decent.
Yes, and what he needs guidance. But I firmly believe that Russell Wilson, because again, I've seen every snap in Denver. Sick brag, bro. Weird flex, but okay. But like, yeah, I mean, every mini camp, every OTA, every day of training camp, most days of practice. Sometimes I got to get my daughter from school, but like still, like most days of practice, I'm there. I got a key to the building, and it still works, which shocks me sometimes, because every time I go up to him, I'm like, is it going to work? Beep. Oh, it worked. Oh my God, they haven't cut me off yet being the operative word. But like, Russell Wilson can be better. And that's why the anti-Russ sentiment from some in the building, I'll tell you more off air, Like, y'all better clean that up because Russ is going to be here. And the thing is like, I've seen enough football. They prepared for wide zone concepts. They prepared for a West Coast Shanahan offense. They're not running that at all. With Brett Rippon, they're not running that. They're not running that with Russell Wilson. They scrapped everything. After week 1, they scrapped everything. And they're doing like this gap, shotgun, 3 wide, a bunch formation. They're doing all this stuff they never practiced. So
it shows.
Yeah, it definitely shows. But I'm beside myself because I've never seen that. You see an off season, okay, this is what they're going to do, and here comes the play action, and here comes the rollouts and the bootlegs. They're going to Jake Plummer it up, right? There's some good football left in Russ. It has to come from an authority. It's probably going to be Dan Quinn. I know, Broncos fans, they want Sean Payton. Sean Payton is probably going to stay in New Orleans. I've got New Orleans people telling me, like, Sean Payton's going to coach next year here. So, the Chargers looks like they'll go to the playoffs. So Brandon Staley will save his job. And do you really want to work for the Spanos family? If you're Sean Payton, just stay in New Orleans another year and then pick wherever you want to go, basically. So fans want Sean Payton, they want Jim Harbaugh, Bruce Arians, whatever. Like, nah, I get it. You need someone that can tell Russ, like, no, you're not doing that. This is what we're doing. And then you need that authority. Nathaniel Hackett is not an authority whatsoever, but there is good football left in Russell Wilson. You have to do it the right way. You have to run the ball. You have to do bootlegs and play action and rollouts and just get him on the run, not as a scrambler, but just move that pocket, open up those passing lanes so you don't get those tip passes. But I firmly believe that with proper coaching and an authority figure in the room, Russell Wilson can get back to playing good football. Never top 10, but, in the 15 range, somewhere in there. And you can win with that. With this Broncos defense, you can win with that. I don't think Javonte, my guy, I don't think Javante's ever the same again. So you better draft another running back because you didn't draft Isaiah Pacheco. George Payton dropped the ball so much. We are about 20 minutes into the show. It's the first time I've talked about Pacheco because he should have drafted Tariq Woolen. I was banging the table on day 5, and he's like, hey, did Larry and Turner yell, everybody? Who's a special teams guy, like terrible safety, whatever, like Tariq Woolen, best corner in the league, maybe as a rookie. Isaiah Pacheco, 7th rounder, had to get Montreal Washington, the Division II return man from Samford. And then people chirp me like, Samford's not actually Division II. I don't even care. It's not Division I. And you're taking a flip and return, man, when you brought Isaiah Pacheco in for a top 30 visit and you didn't draft him. And he was there all the way to the 7th round. Now the Chiefs have a starting running back and you don't. And Javante's down and with the double knee injury, because it's multiple ligaments in his knee, Javonte Williams may never be the same again. You could have had Isaiah Pacheco in the 7th round and you didn't do it. George Payton, you're supposed to crush this. The first rounders, stuff like that. Oh, anybody can see that. That's obvious. It's that day 3 stuff. You better get right. And when guys like Tariq Woolen, again, Tariq Woolen might be the best corner in the league right now. I don't think he is, but he's in the conversation. What's he got? 6 picks and 4 pick sixes, like whatever the number is. Isaiah Pacheco starting for the Chiefs. Like, this is where Peyton should have come through. But if you build it the right way with Russ, it will happen. It will happen. He can still do it. He's got to stay healthy, all those sorts of things. But like, good football is still there. I saw him enough in the spring and the summer to know, like, he's not washed. He looks washed. Because Hackett from day 1 is like, what do you want to do, Russ? Hey, we're Russ. And he was weird with Sierra because Sierra's there every day and Russ has his own office. Here's all the problems with Russell Wilson. He's got 6 parking spots. Guys don't like that. Okay. Players don't like that. Why does he get, he's got his own staff that has full access to the building at all times. And his staff tells the Broncos when Russ is done practicing. So not even control of the staff. Being like, football is about overweight men and windbreakers yelling at you. But Russell Wilson has his own staff that tells you, oh, no, Russ is done today. We're not doing this for Russ today. The Broncos, that is not being met kindly. Again, another Lassie bark for everybody out there. Like, if you look at everything, the office, their not relatability, having his own staff kind of tell the Broncos what to do. And, and God bless his family and all the success that they've had, but like, they have full run of the building. Other players' families don't have that. And Hackett was like weird with Sierra at the introductory press conference. Like, that's the dude's wife, man. And he's all fanboying, like, oh my God, it's Sierra. I'm so excited. Like, dude, stop. I know you're a hip hop dancer or whatever, and you sound like Will Ferrell. Let's knock it off. Like, come on, Nathaniel Hackett, stop being weird, okay? You don't be weird with another man's wife. Like, oh, my God, Sierra. Like, oh, shut the hell up, dude. Be a coach. The problem with Hackett is that he's just genuflex to Wilson. He's not an authority. And Wilson, I'll do whatever I want to do. No. Do what the Broncos need you to do, because that on a logo on the side of the helmet, that's not an RW3 logo, right? The threes. Come on, the threes. That's a stupid name. Stupid name for your fan. This guy got the threes. Like, what? Oh, I got a shot for that in college. Penicillin cleared it right up. But anyway, like the threes. What? Like, no, dude, it's the Broncos. It's all about what's best for the Broncos. And Nathaniel Hackett, that's not it. And letting Wilson just have free reign over everything, you got to have an adult in the room. It's like, no, Russ, got one spot. Staff, they're not in here. Sarah, God bless her, great, fantastic, and a fantastic person. Like, and that's the thing. Like, Russell Wilson's a great guy. You got to root for good guys. There's not a lot of good guys, or I mean, there is a lot of good guys in this league, but usually the guys that aren't good guys are the ones that get the headlines. Like, Russ is a good guy. Sierra's a very good woman, great family, all these sorts of things, great values. Like, we should be rooting for this. But outside the building, this is where we do our work. Your staff, hey, after 6 p.m., your staff can come in here and they can check you out and whatever. Your office, nah, man, no. Peyton didn't have his own office, so there's things that need to be cleared up with Russell Wilson, and it's not going to happen with Hackett, because Hackett from day one just bowed down to whatever Russell Wilson wanted.
There is so much to unpack with what you just said, and yet the most
when you
shocking...
said I'll get you in 20 minutes, I was like, 20 minutes? That's like one of my answers.
And honestly, the most shocking thing you said is that you actually watched every snap of yesterday's game between the Cardinals and the Broncos, because the way you look right now, there's no way I wouldn't just be devouring chips in front of me because of how boring that game was. I had to watch that game for work, and I hated it. So, like, I just can't imagine, like, the own staff deal, Hackett and Peyton and Wilson, but yeah, still, you sitting down on your own to watch the Brett Rippon, Trace McSorley Super Bowl. This is the one that I can't believe it. Oh wow! So let's touch upon Hackett real quick, because he's going to be probably the first guy gone on Black Monday, right? Because this is it. This offense isn't just bad, right? This is like one of the worst offenses I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. Now, yes, there are some issues, right, with the team in general, and we'll go over what spots need to be filled. But this isn't that bad of a team, right? And I had this conversation with Broncos fans in the beginning of the season that, yeah, the NFL teams at the top and the NFL teams at the bottom, there's a huge disparity between them, right? But the teams in the middle, spot 5 to spot 25, their rosters are not that much different, right? It's a slight upgrade here, a slight upgrade there. They're all pretty similar, right? The Broncos do not have a bottom 3 roster.
No, not at all.
Right? This is still a halfway decent roster. Like, you could argue it's in the 20s, you could argue it's in the teens. It's not a bad roster. What do you see? Like, I know you're saying it's defaulting to Russ, and you're saying that they're essentially this running plays out there that they haven't practiced like it's some makeshift high school game. But is there a decent offense to be had with the guys that are currently there?
1,000%. Yes. And we saw glimpses of it against Arizona. Now it comes with running the ball. Nathaniel Hackett never ran the ball. Yeah, Javonte Williams never gave him more than 15 carries. In fact, no one until just, a week or two ago, and it was Latavius Murray with 17, and then yesterday at 24, no one had more than 15 carries. He had this fascination with Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon sucks, okay? Nice guy, whatever, always up front in the locker room. These things are all true, but on the field, he sucked, okay? Bottom line, I don't care. I don't want to – it's about the feelings. Football's not about your feelings. Melvin Gordon sucks. And Nathaniel Hackett kept playing him in a running back by committee with Javonte Williams, who could have been Nick Chubb. You know, that's the type of talent you just wasted because Nathaniel Hackett has no idea what he's doing. And this, I got to use it like a committee. No, you don't. You had one guy that should have got 25 carries every game. Set things up for Russ. You told Russ, we're going to set you up with the run. We're going to Seattle it up, baby, and we're going to win. We're going to see what we got. Kind of feel things out this year, win 10 games. How many losses have been by one score for the Broncos this year? Of their 10 losses, I think it's 8 have been by one score, top of my head. So, like, you could have easily have flipped your record. That's points to coaching. The talent is there. They've got talent. They do.
Especially on that defense, man. Like, your defense is incredible how good this defense is.
Yes. Now, part of those numbers, as you well know, Matt, can be, mysterious or misguided because teams go in, they're like, all we got to do is score, 17 points and we win. So teams aren't really putting the gas on against Denver, and that's what makes the defense look a little bit better. But they have playmakers. They have playmakers at all 3 levels when everybody's healthy on offense. Why is Jerry Jeudy now playing the X? Like, seriously. And I love Cortland Sutton, but Sutton wasn't winning in training camp. And, and I know that's against Surtain, and Surtain, one of the best in the league, whatever I got to say, but Sutton wasn't winning in camp. I could count on one hand of a bad woodshop teacher as many times as Cortland Sutton won against Pat Surtain in training camp. Okay. It was like almost non-existent. Yet against Kansas City, they're like, we don't have Sutton, so let's put Jeudy at the X, and he had 3 touchdowns. What? Now they win against Arizona, and I know Arizona's worse than Denver. Oh my God. Anyway,
Arizona is an actual dumpster fire. Like, this is bad. This can be turned around. Arizona is an actual fire.
Yeah, that's just got to wash it all away. But like, okay, you did that, but you did it with running the ball and playing great defense. And from a DFS perspective, like, defense and running game just go hand in hand. Like, it's supposed to go together because you can run the ball, use time of possession, keep your defense fresh, grind down an opponent. All these things should have already been done, but Happy Fun Baby Star is like, oh, let Russ cook. What do you want, Russ? Shotgun? That doesn't work. That doesn't work. And I hate to use barnyard psychology and sound like Dr. Phil, but how's that working out for you? All that shotgun, all that 3 wide. And sometimes those simple questions are the best, right? In movie writing, Matt, they call it the all is lost moment. As you can see, Save the Cat over my shoulder right there. The Blake Snyder beat sheet, the greatest screenwriting book of all time. Save the Cat. Thank you, Blake Snyder. R.I.P. big guy. But either way, like, it's the all is lost moment. At the end of the movie, right before the 3rd act, there's always someone, is usually your best friend, that goes, you know what your problem is? You could tell me that, Matt, because we're such good friends. You know what your problem is, Lammey? You got a big mouth and blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, oh, and then you fix it and you win. That's the 3rd act. Someone had needed to do that this entire time, and they could have had 10 wins instead of 10 losses. It's easy to see right in front of you. So again, Happy Fun Baby Star, he just doesn't figure this out, and let's Russ cook and shotgun and 3 wide. And like, I could make the argument that yesterday with Brett Rippon, the Broncos offense looked better than yesterday had Russell Wilson played. And it's because with Brett, you can tell him what to do. Brett, we're running the ball. With Russ, you've already established you can't tell him what to do. And it's not Russ being a me guy. It's Hackett just not. Russ, you like this? What about this, Russ? No, tell him. You're the damn coach. Be a coach. Don't be his best friend. So anyway, Hackett's awful. The Broncos players, though, these players are good. I like these players. Not all of them. They're not all great, but they're more talented than their record reflects.
And with the all is lost moment, right, you need someone who's going to be honest with you, right? And I think we've established over the last 25 minutes or so, no one is being honest with the leadership there, right?
Nope.
They always say that that a franchise is held by 4 pillars, right? It's the owner, the head coach, the quarterback, and the personnel department, right? Their GM. None of those. Well, the ownership is brand new, but none of those other 3 guys want to be honest with themselves, and no one wants to be honest to them, right? This isn't working. This is not going the way it should be going. And yeah, like, I think I might print and frame the football as a bunch of old guys in windbreakers yelling at you and throw that on behind it, because that's exactly what football is, right? Like, it's tough love. It's down dirty sometimes. Like, honestly, there's a lot of glamour to this sport. But yeah, to win, you have to put in the time, and you have to kind of be checked occasionally. Hey, this is not working. You just
know how to take a chewing and perform. The best athletes in all of sports, in any sport, whatever you want to talk about, they perform with a calm mind. You have to do that while guys are rushing to kill you. If you're a quarterback, you have to do that in tennis. You have to do that in every sport. You have to perform with a calm mind. And part of that, as a coach, you got to be able to, and I'm not promoting verbal abuse, okay? But it's like, yeah, you're gonna yell, and you better hear me. Listen to the message, though. Know how to take a chewing. And for guys that are too fragile, like, oh my God, you yelled at me, which is fine. There are people like that, as people that manage other people. Like, people are like rubber bands; they're all wound differently. So some are wound really tight, and if you raise your voice, they're completely shattered. And some you got to kick in the ass every day because they're wound so damn loose. Got to know like how to handle people. But as a football player, you damn right you know how to take a chewing. You're not the greatest thing ever. Get out there and perform, because at the end of the day, it's a performance-based business, and the Broncos aren't getting it done. And it is Hackett. It is the coaching staff, not Ajira ever on the defense, but it is the coaching staff. Butch Berry instead of Mike Munchak. Butch Berry is a terrible offensive line coach. Absolutely terrible. Speaking of yellers, he's a yeller, but not a teacher. So these players
Those are the worst.
who are very young, like let's just say Quinn Miners. And as an example, not like Quinn told me this or anything, but like, you're a Quinn Miners, you need someone to teach you. You're a Division III guy. You're just a Wisconsin Whitewater. You were snapping to trash cans on a Canadian island before the draft 2 years ago. Okay. You need someone to teach you, not someone to yell at you and tell you suck. And that's all Butch Berry does, allegedly, or whatever I have to say. Like, he's a terrible coach. I've heard some bad things about Ty Wheatley, the running back coach. Again, why were they doing a committee? Why couldn't you give Javonte 25 carries a game like you just gave Latavius Murray in a win? You got 24. Anyway, all a big problem, largely because of the staff, the inexperienced staff, and the, happy fun baby star trying to be everybody's best friend.
And I can't stand coaches like that are just yellers and not teachers, because you're right. What are you doing, right? And I think those kind of coaches get a pass in the NFL, right? Because a lot of these guys are so good, they have their own private trainers that even if you kind of suck as a coach, you can kind of get away with it because these guys this is their job, right? It's not like high school or college where they're splitting time between football and academics, or football, whatever else they're doing. This is their entire job, right? So if you're an average coach, right, if they have a great personal coach, they can kind of overcome it to a degree. But yeah, like when you're an offensive line coach, is the most important position coach on the team, right? Because it's the only guy that's taking 5 individuals and really meshing them together to make a cohesive unit. So if you don't have a good teacher as your O-line coach, you're kind of shit out of luck, right? Because like that's the offensive line is the only unit on the team that has to play like a unit, right? Everyone else has shares of a unit. Like you can say the coverage team has a share of a unit. You can say the defensive line has a share of a unit. So the quarterback and the receivers do. But the offensive line really has to work in lockstep every single play. And if your position coach sucks, that'll be the first thing to show. And yeah, it's not like the Broncos O-line was spectacular coming into the season, but they weren't bad. Right.
Mike Munchak figured out how to get through to Garrett Bowles. And I know I've made people mad locally, but they'll be all right. Because I was like, Garrett Bowles has to not be any sort of, high drama with Bowles. And people lost their, what do you mean? He's the greatest guy ever. Like, I know Garrett. Like, I talk honestly about Garrett. You know what? I see him at Chipotle. You know what he does? He waves at me like I'm his best friend. Like, Garrett's a good guy. He's a good man. But I also know that before Mike Munchak, Garrett Bowles was a handful. He was high maintenance, and his friends will say, no, there never was the case. Like, stop being that way. Stop being fans with some sort of media access, or, I'm the player's masseuse, and like, oh, okay, dude, that's awesome. Great. You're not their best friend. I'm just going to tell you honestly, I like Garrett Bowles as a man, but he was high maintenance before Mike Munchak. Munchak figured him out, and he needs a little bit more loving, right? Remember, everybody's built differently, and I don't care. Because people are like, it's football and yell, yell, yell. Like, okay, fine. I get that. I usually am behind that. But also, if you have a unique talent, and Garrett Bowles is talent, but if you have a unique talent that needs to be loved up a little bit more, then do that. Because at the end of the day, how's that working out for you? Do what works. And what worked with Garrett Bowles was that Mike Munchak loving him up. And Butch Berry didn't have Garrett Bowles long enough because Bowles got hurt. But like, that was never going to work. This was never the combination. You didn't have to get rid of Mike Munchak, but you gave Nathaniel Hackett. This is all a power vacuum. You gave Hackett too much power. He didn't deserve that power. First time head coach, you're going to name the whole staff? No, dude. You got to have an adult in the room. We're keeping Mike Munchak. We're keeping whoever. Like, I know they kept Zach Azzani, but usually when coaches survive staffs, it's because they they talk. I'll reveal that dirty secret in the NFL. I'm not saying that about Zach Azzani, just allegedly or whatever, but like most of the time, if some, like when Eric Studesville survived through Shanahan and Josh McDaniels and John Fox and on and on, I was like, oh, it's because he'll go to the, oh, okay, he's their guy. He's the guys in the front office. They can go to him, and he's their inside guy on the coaching staff. Oh, I get it. I know. Okay, and I love Studesville. Whatever's whatever. But like, no, you should have done this thing differently, because the talent is there and the opportunity was there with the last place schedule. There was opportunity before their bye in week 9. They could have been 8-0, but they weren't. And now they've lost 10 games because Nathaniel Hackett can't coach. Bottom line, and they gave him too much power. And he gave Russell Wilson too much power, and now everyone's finger pointing. But at the end of the day, I look at the money and I go, Russell Wilson's going to be here. And I know George Payton is going to be here. So bye-bye, Hackett.
Yeah. So let's turn the page here. We just spent 25, 30 minutes just destroying this. And as it should be. This season was horrible, right?
Historically bad.
Historically bad. And when you're looking at expectations versus reality, this has to be up there with one of the worst seasons in the league this year. Maybe behind, honestly, I think even worse than the Raiders, right? Because the Raiders knew their line was garbage. So we knew it was going to be kind of rough, and the Raiders still aren't out of it, even though they've been kind of a dumpster fire throughout the entire year. Thank you, Jacoby Myers, for one of the most worst plays I've ever seen in football history, that lateral pass to Chandler Jones for a Raiders win yesterday. But this team, the Broncos, should be able to rebuild relatively quickly, right? Like they have some cap available, about $19 million, right? And when I've been doing this podcast, looking at teams how to rebuild teams, usually on the open starting positions and the teams that need upgrading, it's a much bigger list than this, right? And like, the first one that pops up is like, quarterback 1. Russell Wilson could easily just be fine next year and go back to the Russell Wilson that we know. We'll have to see if that works. But like, it's not like you have to go out there and spend a ton of money. Right? And even with the Bradley Chubb trade, you have some draft capital. This is not a terrible team, which is why I think they will actually have a decent shot at getting a good head coach in 2023. If they had a lot of open needs and they didn't have a ton of cap, and they had to do it with the whole Russell situation, I don't know that the Broncos could get anyone but like a kind of a bottom of the barrel head coach. But with this, I think they have a shot. If you were the consultant to the Denver Broncos, what would be you don't have to give actual names. If you want to get names, it's fine. But like, what would you be looking for in the next head coach?
Oh, an adult. It's Dan Quinn and Brian Schottenheimer. That's who they're going to get. It's Dan Quinn and Brian Schottenheimer. I would put my chips on that. If you and I are at Vegas and I'm yelling at some guy at the blackjack table, like I'm putting my chips, that would be roulette, not blackjack, but like I'm putting my chips on Dan Quinn and Brian Schottenheimer, and you can Seattle it up because players love Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn is so respected. He's that veteran voice. He's that adult in the room. He does have the personality where he can not even stand up to Russell Wilson. It's just Wilson needs that guidance. Wilson will not fight guidance. Maybe he did with Pete Carroll, right? And that's why they needed a divorce. But at this point in his career, what does Russell Wilson have to stand on? No, coach, right. I'm not doing that. Like, he's never going to do that. Okay? Russell Wilson, at this point in his career, is not that guy. Tell him what to do. He's going to, yes, sir, right away, sir, and he'll do it. Hackett won't tell him that. So that's why Russ just does whatever, and it sucks. But Dan Quinn and then Brian Schottenheimer to run the offense, that's what you need. You need that veteran experience, take over that defense. Defense will be great. You need a right tackle. You need to make sure to keep Draymond Jones, probably with the franchise tag initially. If I were to guess, Matt, I don't think Draymond Jones wants to be here. And I hate that because I love Draymond. I absolutely love him. That is my number 50 pick a few years ago when the Broncos picked him up in the 3rd round. Tremendous value, tremendous playmaker. But like that's the key. Give me a right tackle. Keep Draymond Jones. I'd like to keep Dalton Reisner around. Reisner's a friend. Local guy, Wiggins, Colorado. What's up? He knows where Grover's at, which is where I'm from. So that, we're both the small town Colorado boys. So I love that. But, you've got some things to do, but you can win. And again, you'll be playing another last place schedule because you suck this year, historically bad. So take advantage of it. Like, don't miss your window of opportunity. It's closing with Russ. It's closing with Peyton. And look at all those things that you had on the screen. Imagine if you'd had Tariq Woolen and Isaiah Pacheco, because one starting position that you may need is running back. I don't know if Javonte Williams is ready for the start of next season. So they'll probably bring Chase Edmonds back. He'll have to rework his deal. Darby's gone. Glasgow's gone. Timmy Pats is going to be there. And, they're missing that dog at Timmy Pats. Timmy Pats is such a dog. I love it, man. Love his mentality. Love his mindset. So Timmy Pats is going to be around, and he'll be that alpha in the room that you need. Judy's kind of more of a me alpha. Timmy Pats is like us alpha. One of the team guys that everyone responds to. Love Tim Patrick. So he's going to be around. Darby gone, Glasgow gone. And then figure out your offensive line up front. But draft the right tackle that possibly can be a left someday. If you were to move on from Garrett Bowles, he's always been an older player in the league. So for me, fix things up front. Get your running back. You're either going to have to draft one or just pick up don't pick up Melvin Gordon. Can we establish that? Is that fine? So, bring back a Marlon Mack or whatever. And then probably keep Chase Edmonds. He got a $6 million number, no guarantees though. So you can just be like, here's $2 million. And he'll go, yes, sir. And he'll take it because running back position is brutal. But I don't think Javonte Williams is ready week 1. And I hate that because Javonte was my number 1 back when he came out 2 years ago. Special time. I mean, Nick Chubb. I think Nick Chubb's the best back in the league. So to say that Javonte is Nick Chubb is incredibly high praise. But you have to be prepared for that. And, fix your line, get an adult in the room. Wilson, we're going to run the ball. We're going to play great defense. You're going to have those moon balls. You're going to set up some play action passes. Haven't watched Jake Plummer film from 2005. This is what we're going to do. You're going to do that. Jake Plummer is pretty damn good and had then a Broncos record before Peyton Manning, of course, had a Broncos record of 27 touchdowns. Even John Elway didn't have 27 touchdowns. And it was a different game then, but he had 25 touchdowns is his career high. Plummer had 27 that year. So just watch all that film. Hey, Russ, you're going to have 25 to 30 touchdowns. We're going to bootleg the hell out of it. We're going to run the hell out of the ball, a couple 1,000-yard rushers, and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. The O-line has to be built up. And I think the one positive that I really felt came out of the season is the emergence of Jerry Jeudy, right? Because Jerry Jeudy, I felt, was more of a name than an actual productive player up to this season, where everyone knew Jerry Jeudy. We all had high praise for Jerry Jeudy coming out of the draft. We're coming into the draft, and then he really hadn't produced at a high level yet. Now we're seeing Jerry Jeudy is kind of what we thought he was going to be, right? He's a pretty good player. I don't think he's Cooper Kupp or anything of that level, but he's still pretty good, right? And you have a good receiving core. Greg Dulcich came out of nowhere and became pretty good in his rookie season, which is pretty good. So it allows you to spend the resources you have on offensive line, right? Because in order to get a tackle, you're going to have to probably give him the first top 50 picks, right? Most of the best tackles are picking the top 50. And then you cut a Graham Glasgow, get $11 million back. All of a sudden, you're hanging out with $30 million bucks, and you only have a few positions to fill. This team could be really good. This team could be really good. But I agree. I think this team, unlike the last two teams I just did, which were the Raiders and the Rams, which have a lot of personnel needs, the Broncos really is just like, hey, we need a new guy in there. If you get a new guy in there, the rest will kind of fall into place, and they'll be right back at the top. Not sure this team will beat the Chiefs, but this team should at least be contending for the West and definitely making the playoffs if they have someone like Dan Quinn in there.
Russell Wilson could be comeback player of the year in 2023. Again, Wilson's not what he used to be, but he's not washed.
Are we betting on that? Are we going to put some money?
Am I going to go yell at somebody at the blackjack table again? That guy made me so mad.
I've never seen you so mad.
I usually don't get mad. I don't like getting mad because I think anger is pretty much a waste of time. But I was just so pissed off at that guy. Don't tell other people how to play when Anyway, that's another podcast.
Listen, man. I will say people in casinos are like Twitter come to life. Really, it's just they're just odd people, man. They're odd, and I'm excited to see what this team can do with different leadership. Obviously, you don't ever want someone to lose their job, but you kind of earned it, right? You earned it, and I will say, when I first got into this industry, one of the first things I heard was from Mike Tannenbaum. He was like, "Listen, if you're going to be in football, just know that you are going to get fired. Mm-hmm. There's no other way." Right. Very few people get to leave on their own. So Hackett knows what he signed up for, and it's unfortunate it's the one done deal. But listen, he was a pretty good offensive coordinator. He'll get a shot somewhere else to be an OC. But this team has to go to a Quinn or somebody else. But Cecil, man, I appreciate you. Where can the people find your work?
Yeah, all over the place. Denverfan.com and footballguys.com. That's the main two stops for me. But it's almost draft mode, baby. So yeah, just getting my mindset on that and getting ready for my favorite time of year.
Awesome. And besides the football stuff, man, where can they find your great work, your comic book work? Where can they find that?
Yeah, coming to Kickstarter pretty soon. I'll show you a little bit of what I got. Now, this is coming to Kickstarter in February. So Immortal. This is only for The Rock. These are not available to the public, but the story Fake Booze will be on Kickstarter in January. And you can check out all my comic book stuff at smokingguncomics.com. That's smokingguncomics.com.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much, dude.
Appreciate you.